All right, this has been an issue that has dominated the political discourse over the past few days. Let's now cut across live to India Today's consulting editor Rajdeep Sardesai, who is interviewing none other than Mr. P. Chidambaram, the man who's a legal eagle, the man who has been the finance minister, home minister in the UPA government, and has now been fielded by the UPA to douse the National Herald heat.
Hello and welcome to this special interview on India Today TV. The National Herald case has pushed the Congress leadership on the back foot and threatens the future of the critical goods and services tax. What is the Congress's legal and political strategy? Who better to answer that than former finance minister and one of the country's legal eagles, P. Chidambaram. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Chidambaram. The big question is the National Herald case, which your party says is political vendetta. Rahul Gandhi is saying that it is 100% political vendetta driven by the Prime Minister's office. Where is the evidence of that?
Well, I don't want to comment on what Mr. Gandhi said, but let me give you my view. As long as it was a private complaint, it remained in the courts. But why did the government reopen a closed inquiry by the Enforcement Directorate? I have before me statements by several BJP leaders, including ministers. I can give you dates, I can give you the occasion. But they have commented on the case. They have said there's a strong prima facie case against the Gandhis and various other comments. If the government is actually indifferent to the case or neutral on the case, why did they reopen a closed Enforcement Directorate inquiry?
So you're shifting because the question is, you are a lawyer. The Delhi High Court says that the case smacks of criminality. The behavior of the Congress leaders mentioned in the case smacks of criminality. The Metropolitan Magistrate in the lower court says this appears prima facie to be a sham transaction where public monies have been transferred for private benefit. Now this is being said by the court. So it's the court, whether it's been reopened or not is not the issue. The issue is what the court has said. These are very strong words used by the court.
I answered your first question. Why is there suspicion about the BJP? Since that question has been answered, let's move on to the judgment now.
No, that question has also not been entirely answered because it remains a private complaint. Subramaniam Swamy files this complaint in 2012-2013. He doesn't file it when the BJP is in power in 2015.
It doesn't matter when the complaint was filed. What matters is, after the BJP government came into office, the ED had a preliminary inquiry and closed it saying there's no case. The ED was abruptly transferred. The case was reopened. That answers your question, why is there suspicion about the BJP's motives?
You're saying the ED effectively is acting under the instructions of the Prime Minister's office?
It's for you to draw the inference. I'm stating
Rahul
facts.
Gandhi seems to be suggesting that.
I'm stating facts. ED closed the inquiry, the ED was transferred, inquiry was reopened. You draw your inference. Now let's move on to the judgment. I'm not criticizing the judge. I'm criticizing the judgment. That's perfectly permissible. The judgment, of course, will have to be challenged appropriately, and I'm sure the lawyers will do that. But what is the case? There is a company called Associated Journals Limited. It owns property. It has a modest income. It has 761 shareholders or so. The company owns the property and the income. Now all that has been done is a new shareholder has been introduced who's now the 99% shareholder. But that shareholder is not a private person. That shareholder is a non-profit company under Section 25 of the Companies Act, which means we have put a lock on AJL. Nobody can benefit from the properties of AJL. Nobody can benefit from the income of AJL. Not 1 rupee can be transferred to anyone. Not 1 rupee can be distributed to anyone. What has been done is to ensure that nobody benefits from the properties or income of AJL.
Let me raise the two questions though that emerge from the transaction itself. Question number one, the Congress party agrees to pay or give an interest-free loan to AJL, which according to Subramaniam Swamy in the first place is a violation of the Representation of People's
Which
Act.
section?
A.
Which section?
B.
Which
Number,
section?
No, no, what?
No, no,
one
you
minute.
must know the
Okay.
section.
No, no, he says Income Tax Act and Representation of People's Act, A, violation. B. When the transaction is, after that, you have a situation where this loan is transferred
Correct.
to Young India Company.
Correct.
And Young India Company, for the payment of 50 lakhs only, acquires assets worth 2,000 crores. Now, is
That's
that,
a mistake.
no, that's the question.
I'll answer it.
Because it seemed like a sweetheart deal.
You've asked your question,
Yes,
wait
sir.
for the answer.
Yes.
A loan of 90 crores is given over a period of time to run National Herald. National Herald was not a success in the last years, it lost money. The 90 crore is outstanding on the books of AJL.
Yes.
That loan stands in the name of the Congress party. It is assigned to a non-profit company, underline, a non-profit company called Young Indian.
With Rahul and Sonia Gandhi
And
as the
several
prime
others.
shareholders
Makes
along
no
with other
difference.
Congress leaders.
Makes no difference. It's a non-profit company. It doesn't matter who the shareholders are, who the directors are. Please look at section 25. It's a non-profit company.
It cannot take any benefit from the properties and assets
not
of
one
AJL.
rupee, not 1 rupee can be received.
Then why doesn't it put its balance sheet in the public domain and respond to what you're saying?
I have to answer your first question completely before you I move on to the next question. So 90 crore loan is assigned to a non-profit company. The non-profit company now is a lender to AJL. That loan is converted to an equity. So you've got 90 crore worth of equity. You become the major shareholder of AJL. But please remember, the major shareholder is a non-profit company, which means you put a lock. Not 1 rupee can be received, not 1 rupee can be distributed. In fact, I can't think of any argument to say that this is a deal, much less a sweetheart deal. What we have done. For what? Who has benefited?
The benefit has the Young India Company shareholders have acquired for just rupees 50 lakhs assets worth 2,000 crores and more.
You're wrong. You please ask your accountant, he'll explain it to you in 2 minutes. Young Indian became a lender to AJL. A loan of 90 crore has been converted to equity. And since Young Indian is a non-profit company, underline non-profit company, it cannot receive 1 rupee from AJL.
So
just a moment, you must allow me to complete my sentences. It cannot receive 1 rupee from AJL, nor can it distribute 1 rupee to its shareholders. It is locked. The property and the income of AJL are completely secure now.
You're focusing on the fact that it is a Section 25 company, it's a non-profit company. Dr. Swamy and it appears the courts are looking at the manner in which this 90 crore debt, which was owed by AJL to the Congress party, Motilal Vora is the treasurer of that party. Then you have a company being floated, Young India Company, where Motilal Vora also is in. And it therefore seems a nice little cozy transaction that has been achieved to transfer the debt which had been incurred by AJL to Young India Company, so that Young India Company now acquires complete control of AJL.
The problem is, you don't have accountant's advice, you don't have lawyer's advice. A 90 crore loan owing to Young Indian because of the transfer becomes a 90 crore equity. If Young Indian was not a non-profit company, much of this argument may have merit. But Young Indian is a non-profit company. Today, therefore, the major shareholder of AJL is a non-profit company. Not 1 rupee of AJL's assets, not 1 rupee of AJL's income can go to anyone.
So income earned from any of the real estate which is owned by AJL, you say cannot go to the Gandhi family in any way. Then why isn't the balance sheet of Young India provided in the public domain?
I'm sure they have filed it with ROC.
Because the question is, you're making an argument in this program which people will say the Congress lawyers presumably have also made in the court has rejected it. The Metropolitan Magistrate and the High Court, in fact the High Court while summoning the Gandhis has made it very clear that it smacks of criminality.
We can talk about the High Court judgment.
Yes.
As I said, I'm not criticizing the judge, I'm criticizing the judgment. You know what the High Court judgment says? High Court judgment says it smacks of criminality, but at this stage, I don't even have to examine which section is attracted. I mean, I'm sorry, I can't imagine judgment saying it smacks of criminality, but I don't have to even prima facie say which section is attracted. Which is the section that is attracted? Let's take cheating. Please look at section
Cheating
4.
and breach of trust.
I'll answer both. I don't know when you last saw the text of the sections. Cheating means a person A must cheat B. B must be the complainant. Who has been cheated here? Breach of trust means property must be entrusted by A to B and B must misappropriate it. Who has entrusted property to anyone and who has misappropriated? On the contrary, property remains AJL. All that has happened is instead of 761 shareholders being shareholders of the company, they've introduced a 762nd shareholder who's now the major shareholder, who's a non-profit company. Not 1 rupee can be taken out of AJL, not 1 rupee can be distributed to anyone.
And this company has done very little to actually further the purposes for which AJL was set up, which was to set up newspapers, publications.
Well,
it simply sits on prime property.
I can't comment on that. You must talk to the directors of the company. All I can point out is there is no deal as you imply, and much less a sweetheart deal. On the contrary, what has happened is we have secured the property and income of AJL.
Therefore, if you believe this is such a strong case and the High Court judgment is flawed, the right approach would have been go back to the Metropolitan Magistrate who summoned you, appear before it, give a point-by-point rebuttal, treat this purely as a legal matter rather than imputing political motives and blocking Parliament and thereby effectively suggesting that even the judiciary is working under the instructions of the political executive.
Let me answer that. Nobody has made that suggestion.
Of course it is made,
Just
sir.
a moment. You must allow me to complete an answer. Your questions are longer than the answer.
Go ahead.
They will go back to the court. Mrs. Gandhi and Mr. Rahul Gandhi have made it clear they will appear before the court on December 19. They are very competent lawyers. They will answer that. The point is, why does it come to Parliament? It came to Parliament, as I said in my answer to your first question, because the BJP did not remain neutral on this. The BJP government reopened an Enforcement Directorate inquiry after sacking the Director of Enforcement or transferring him. And I have a number of statements with me. The glee on the faces of the BJP leaders, the glee in their voices, the statements they have made, that triggers suspicion. If the BJP was completely indifferent to that case, the BJP should have said, we have nothing to do with it. We have not asked the ED to do anything. We are not, none of our agencies is investigating anything. In fact, I have a statement here which said about a year ago, ED is not investigating the matter. And now we have ED investigating the matter. What is the ED investigating?
Sir, Arun Jaitley has made it very clear that issues of criminality or otherwise have to be decided in the courts, not in the media, not in Parliament.
I agree.
This suspicion which you are saying is surely not enough to block Parliament. In fact, they've gone beyond that. They've even cited your case where they said your son and his friends were raided and they have brought that and said this is political intimidation. They've cited Veerbhadra Singh's case and said that is political intimidation. So they widened the ambit.
Please don't worry about taking my name.
So you yourself have responded. You yourself have responded.
Please don't worry
and
about
suggested there is political vendetta.
Please don't worry about taking my name. The CBDT put out a lame statement on the same day by saying no political person or a member of his family is either a shareholder or director in the two companies that we searched. Having put out that lame statement, where's the question of alleging any link to me? Be that as it may.
No, so your party has said this. Your party in Parliament has used even your case to suggest political vendetta. So I'm asking where is the evidence of it?
We are moving away from matter to matter. Yes. I'm saying, why did the ED reopen the inquiry under the BJP government? There's no answer to that so far. Why was the previous ED transferred abruptly overnight And why was the inquiry opened?
Because
If
the
BJP
sense, according to Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, is that the previous ED was deliberately going slow and there was a need for a more impartial, neutral enforcement directorate to act in this case.
So the BJP will be the BJP will yield to the charge of the complainant. The BJP government
There's
will
a
yield.
court. There's a court also, sir.
You're
which is
mixing
looking
up
at
two
the
things.
case.
We're talking about the ED now. The ED is not before court. A private complainant is before court. Why did a closed inquiry, why was it reopened by the BJP government?
So that is your single point when it comes to the issue of political vendetta.
That triggers the suspicion that the BJP is not neutral, BJP is not indifferent.
It's suspicion. It's not evidence, sir.
Well, at this stage, it can only be suspicion. We are not proving anything in a court of law. There must be a cogent answer. Why did a closed inquiry? Why was it reopened?
Is that reason enough again to block Parliament?
I don't know about
winter session.
I don't know about what happens.
So
in
do
Parliament.
you approve of that? Do you approve of the manner in which Parliament is blocked by your party when it's in opposition because there is a suspicion that a case has been reopened against the Gandhi family?
That is a question.
Because that leads to the public perception that the Gandhis are above the law.
No, nobody is above the law. Nobody claims to be above the law. The point is what happened in Parliament, what was the argument, what was the counter-argument. These are matters when one has to go through the transcript of what happens in Parliament. Yesterday, I believe, Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad made a powerful intervention. But most of the media doesn't seem to have reported it. Therefore, we need to know what happens in Parliament. I'm sure this question should be put to the Parliament leaders and they will answer that.
You're distancing yourself, or at least disapproving of the blocking of Parliament, because when you were in government and the BJP was in the opposition, you also, on more than one occasion, disapproved of the manner in which the opposition was blocking Parliament for issues that extended beyond Parliament in the courts of the country.
I cannot comment on what is happening in Parliament because I'm not in Parliament. All I can point out is...
That's not distancing yourself from your party line.
Why should I distance myself from my party? And my party line is my party line. The point is what is happening in Parliament, what are the dynamics in Parliament that work on any given day, is a matter which only parliamentary party leaders can say. And if, for some reason, the parliamentary managers felt on that day that the government was unresponsive, the government was behaving in a manner that is not acceptable, then disruption will follow.
Let me end this part by just asking you a very simple thing. Do you concede that this entire National Herald case has come as a huge embarrassment for the Congress leadership and the Congress party? What the High Court itself says, that this is a party which has existed for so many years and you have a situation which smacks of criminality. Has it been an embarrassment, yes or no?
Well, I don't think it has embarrassed us. It has caused us some concern about the motives of the government and those who are supporting the government. And therefore, I think it has simply stiffened our back to fight the government. I think the government must recognize that there is deep suspicion about the government's motives and no attempt has been made in the last few days to allay that suspicion. In fact, a number of statements coming from BJP leaders reinforces that suspicion.
When you say motives, are you saying that you believe that this government wants to put the Gandhis in jail? That Subramaniam Swamy and the government want to put the Gandhis in jail and the court will just stand by, and ultimately it's a matter of law. It's not a matter of politics.
Let me tell you, there's nothing that the Gandhis have done which can help the government achieve, if that is its motive. I don't know. You are telling me. I don't want to put words.
Subramaniam Swamy in an interview yesterday told me this, that he believes that this is a fit case where the Gandhis should be put in jail.
I am not talking about any private complainant. I don't want to take any names. All I'm saying is statements emanating from BJP leaders, including ministers, reinforces the suspicion that there is a motive. It's for the government.
And the ED is operating under the finance minister's instruction.
I can't make any accusation. All I'm placing before you is facts. It's for your viewers to draw the conclusion. There is an ED inquiry. It's closed. A private complainant writes a letter. The ED is sacked. The inquiry is reopened. What does that mean?
All this is also happening at a time when the goods and services tax, which many believe is the most significant indirect tax reform in a long time, hangs fire. And that is also raising concerns that the real motive of the Congress party is to prevent GST from being passed in this session of Parliament. That's what the government is saying, that this is all a smokescreen to prevent GST from being passed. There are two agendas. One is to protect the Gandhi family. The other is to prevent GST from being passed.
You're making a bizarre link. If anyone is most concerned about the GST, it's me. I announced the GST in my budget speech of 2005-06. I worked very hard over it in my first stint as finance minister and UPA. Mr. Mukherjee introduced the bill. When I returned to the finance ministry, I worked. The GST bill was stalled by the BJP for 2.5 years for no reason whatsoever, but that's history. Today, we have raised genuine concerns. And I have with me Dr. Arvind Subramaniam's committee's report, which broadly endorses the Congress party's concerns.
That's right. Out of the three concerns, two have already been addressed.
No, I have not received anything. Party has not received anything.
Arvind Subramaniam's report seems to broadly reach out to you on two concerns. One is the cap on GST, and the second is the 1% sales tax
I
waiver.
don't know if you speak for the government. At the meeting called by the Prime Minister, both Mrs. Gandhi and Dr. Manmohan Singh made it clear that we need to get the revised formulations of the government on our concerns.
Yes.
That meeting took place almost 7-8 days. As we speak today, we have not received any revised formulation from the government. I spoke about this to both the Congress President and Mr. Gandhi yesterday. Once we receive the revised formulations, then we will respond. The government is silent for the last 7 days on the revised formulations.
Let's look at those three key areas of difference.
Then are you speaking for the government?
I'm speaking for...
I need to know what the formulation is.
I'm speaking as an observer.
Yes.
Right? There are three objections that you have.
All three are valid.
That is for you to say valid. The government has its own concerns. But I'm raising 3 points.
Yes.
Government dropped the proposed additional 1% levy on interstate sales. Apparently, the government is ready to reach out.
When have they said it to us?
The Subramaniam report certainly seems to suggest
government must say it.
Now you want the government to say it. Okay, let's assume that. So you're saying the moment the government says it, then you will...
No, let government say it.
Number two, the fact is an explicit cap of 18% should be included in the Constitution Amendment Bill. Am I correct? That's your second demand.
That is our request.
That is your request. Yes. If the government accedes to that...
How can I answer? Let me see the formulation.
My sense from speaking to government ministers is that they are ready to accede to some kind of a cap.
Please ask them to send the formulation.
Which then leaves the third is the dispute redressal mechanism.
Yes.
Where there are differences. Now, if the government is reaching out to you, is the Congress party going to be adamant and say my way or the highway?
No, you keep repeatedly saying if the government is reaching out. Where has the government reached out?
Venkaiah Naidu told me yesterday that we are more than ready to reach out more than halfway.
Why don't they write us a letter giving us the three formulations?
Am I to understand that if they give you these three formulations as they see it in response to your three concerns,
we'll study it and we'll respond.
And you will allow Parliament then to function and allow this legislation to pass?
You are taking the argument beyond step 1, 2, 3, 4. I must receive the formulations.
No, I am asking you a very simple question. Are you linking what is happening in Parliament and this suspicion of political vendetta to GST?
Let me make it very clear.
That's important.
I made a statement yesterday after meeting Mrs. Gandhi and Mr. Gandhi that we are waiting for the government's formulations. The link between the GST bill and what's happening in Parliament today is a link made by the media and by the BJP. We have never linked it. I am very anxious that a major reform must go through, but it cannot go through with a flawed bill. The BJP's bill is a flawed bill. And Dr. Subramaniam's report endorses our concerns, and a number of economists, number of business persons have endorsed our concerns. Why are we pushing through a flawed bill and then linking it to a controversy which is in court?
So you call it a flawed bill.
Yes.
Let me respond to what your successor Arun Jaitley, the finance minister, says. When the tariff rate has to be mentioned in the Constitution itself, then it is a flawed architecture. And because the GST with flawed architecture can actually damage the system much more than it can benefit. When you actually mention the exact tax slab in a Constitution Amendment Bill, he says it is a flawed architecture prima facie. So you say it's a flawed bill, And they also say what your three proposals are a flawed bill. So why don't you all sit together and resolve this?
We did. The Prime Minister called a meeting at the highest level. Both Mrs. Gandhi and Dr. Manmohan Singh attended the meeting and expressed our concern in clear terms. Government said they will come back to us after reflection. They have not come back as of this morning.
Let me understand.
And let me also say,
yes,
there is a precedent in the Constitution for capping a tax. Look at the provision dealing with profession tax. The Constitution mentions the cap. Therefore, to say that, to mention a cap in the Constitution is flawed architecture, is belied by another constitutional provision.
The third key area is the dispute redressal mechanism.
Have you heard of anything like this before? That the disputants who constitute the council will also be the dispute resolution mechanism?
So you are calling for what effectively is an autonomous dispute redressal mechanism to resolve any disputes that arise out of GST.
That is how tax disputes are resolved. Sales tax, VAT, income tax, excise, customs are all resolved by independent tribunals.
Let me ask you in conclusion, sir. April 1 is the date which you yourself had mentioned.
Well, no, my date was much earlier.
Your date was much earlier, yes.
BJP blocked it. Your viewers should know that.
Eventually you reached a date of April 1, 2016. Will we meet that deadline for GST, given the differences that exist and are gradually narrowing down between the two sides? Time is running out, sir. This session ends on the 23rd of December. Are you confident that by the 23rd of December, Congress and the government will have reached some kind of an agreement on GST, because most regional parties are on board, sir?
I don't know. This question must be put to the government. They have had our formulations for the last 7 days. They have not responded. They are obliged to respond. It's only when they respond we can say whether a date can be kept.
So you're putting the ball in the government's court.
You know that.
They are saying that they hope that you will reach them, you reach out to them more than halfway. They are willing to reach out more than halfway.
I'm telling you now, we have given our formulations, we are waiting for their response.
And once they respond,
will you have to study that? No,
you will then study. So there are just 12 days left, sir.
You don't know what their response is unless you tell me you are speaking for the government.
Mr. Chidambaram, I'm going to ask you one more time. From your long experience in politics, there are people watching there, and it's an important issue.
It is more important to me than anyone else who's been in government.
So take credit and pass it.
Of course, but please give us your response to our concerns.
Okay, let me then again revert to where I started off. The campaign I have run on my channel is India above politics.
Correct.
And when I see Parliament being blocked in the manner that it is, over suspicions of political vendetta, when I see the kind of tutu meme that is going on, personal attacks that are being made, I wonder whether the politicians want to put India above politics.
Right.
GST cannot be linked to this tutu meme, sir.
This is a broad sweep statement. I can only discuss issue by issue. I've explained to you that the National Herald is a trumpeted charge, and I'm sure it will be found to be a trumpeted charge by the courts in due course. In the meanwhile, we have suspicions about the motives of government. It is government's duty to allay those suspicions. On the GST, I've told you our party's position. We have given our formulations in the clearest terms. Arvind Subramaniam report broadly endorses our concerns. Let us wait for the government to give its revised formulation.
So you sound hopeful on GST.
I'm always hopeful about everything in this world.
Let me ask
including the fact that I may have convinced you partially about some of the misinformation that is spread about the National Herald case and the GST bill.
You know, Mr. Chidambaram, you've not just been the finance minister of the country, you've also been the home minister. And only last night, an Indo-Pak statement has come out which says that the Mumbai 26/11 trial will be pursued expeditiously by Pakistan. India has been assured. You yourself have been a home minister. You monitored that case very closely. Are you confident again there? Are you hopeful again there that in the Mumbai 26/11 trial, Pakistan will prosecute those responsible for the terror attack?
See, I take a statement of a foreign government in the following manner. I accept it at face value. Then I watch it closely. In a few weeks, we'll know whether they are sincere or not. A similar statement has been made so many times. It's been made to me, it's been made to interlocutors, it has been made through interlocutors, but every time they were insincere. Today, let me genuinely hope that they are sincere in that statement. If they are sincere, I welcome it. And whether they are sincere or not, it will be known in a matter of 6 to 8 weeks.
So I sense that you're far more hopeful at the moment on GST and the narrowing down on differences than actually on India and Pakistan and the narrowing down of differences between the two countries.
No, I said I am always hopeful. I always approach a problem with great hope. But sometimes hope turns into despair. What can I say?
I want to end this though with your home state of Tamil Nadu,
yes,
and what's been happening there. We've seen terrible floods in large parts of the state. Some are suggesting it's almost man-made. That it's, yes, there's nature's fury, but the response as well as the manner in which the situation has been dealt with leaves much to be desired. How do you respond?
See, at this moment, where over 100,000 people are still in camps and relief work is underway, is not the right moment to decide what should be done post facto, the floods and the devastation. But I'm sure that the powers that be will realize that at some point of time, one has to do a complete examination of what happened, whether it was only nature's fury or whether it was compounded by incompetence in managing nature's fury. But as I said, this is not the day and time to make that statement. Let's wait for the relief operations to be completed.
Mr. Chidambaram, you've answered all my questions. I just want to leave one last question. Since you've spoken out so strongly on the National Herald case and given your party's side, why aren't you the lawyer for the Gandhi family in court, and will you appear for them in court if you are asked to on the 19th of December?
If you ask me, I'll any day say that both Mr. Kapil Sibal and Dr. Abhishek Singhvi are far more competent and far more experienced than I am. I have been a lawyer, no doubt, but I have had a break for 10 years. That's a very long break.
Mr. Chidambaram, you're sounding unusually modest when you say that.
I know both of them are extremely competent lawyers, and if I had a problem, I would perhaps go to them.
Well, the Gandhis have a problem at the moment, and they've gone to them. We'll see what happens in the case on the 19th of November. I appreciate your joining us, Mr. Chidambaram. Thank you very much. P. Chidambaram, former finance minister, answering a range of questions from National Herald, GST, Indo-Pak dialogue, and the tragic floods.